Hello, and welcome to this week's invitation to write. It is always important to keep the basics of writing instruction in mind as you move through the week. Encourage daily time to write and set expectations, such as what the writing space should look like. Help students understand that writing is a recursive process that involves planning, drafting, receiving feedback, revising, and publishing or sharing. Finally, use mentor texts and models so that students can visualize a finished product. Keep nurturing your community of writers by writing with your students. Day 1. This week, students will explore process writing. Before you show them the invitation to write, you might mention that process writing involves adding the steps necessary to complete a task. To illustrate, you could ask them to brainstorm the steps they would take to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. In the students' Lit Lab guidebook, they will receive this week's invitation to write and to move through the steps of the writing process. This week's invitation explains that in The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, William was determined to help his community. He taught himself about electricity and he set a goal to build a windmill. You could ask the students, what is a goal that you have? It could be a goal for school, sports, your future, or something else. Write down that goal in the space below and draw yourself making that goal happen. Let's move on to the planning stage. Prior to initiating the planning activity, you might want to have the students brainstorm different goals. Then, in the space provided in the Students Lit Lab guidebook, have them write a goal and sketch a picture of themselves achieving the goal. This week, they will use plain white paper to plan. Read the additional planning ideas aloud to them. I want to become a blank someday. I want to get better at. My goal is to, as always, take time to nurture their creativity. Model the process for them, share your drawing with them, and encourage the students to share their planning too. Next, students will move on to drafting. When it's time for the students to move from planning to drafting, have them use their composition notebooks. In their notebooks, they will write down a goal and the steps they will take to reach it. Just like William, encourage them to dream big and to be ready to share their goal with other young dreamers in pursuit of excellence. When writing with them first, you could start the conversation with, I shared that when I was your age, I wanted to be a teacher one day. I'm going to write a paragraph about my goal and the steps I would need to reach it. What are some ideas that you can give me to get me started? Then model using the writer's composition notebook to draft. You can show the students your draft and read it aloud. When I was young, my goal was to become a teacher. I needed to study hard in school. Then I needed to go to college. After I went to college, I worked with a mentor teacher. This is called student teaching. Finally, I could teach in my own classroom. Day 3. When possible, make time for feedback. On day 3, students can gather feedback from you and their peers. Have the students turn to the feedback guide located on the last page of the Students Lit Lab guidebook. Using the sentence and question sums provided, or those that have worked well for you in the past, have students ask others to provide praise, questions, or suggestions. You can also prompt students to focus on specific aspects, such as their ideas, vocabulary, design, and/or effort. After students have received feedback or have looked over their writing themselves, give them time to polish their pieces. Revision lists encourage students to focus on a few items to work on. These lists can be added to their composition notebooks or placed on sticky notes or note cards. You can model this process too. For example, the students might encourage me to add what I studied in college or the kinds of classes I took. Finally, on day 3, help students choose a section of their writing to share on day 4. Day 4. Now consider the ways that students can share their writing with their peers. Students can choose to share all or part of their work. And of course, if students are not comfortable sharing, they are not required to do so. Use a designated space that signals the featured author and have peers respond with finger snapping, clapping, or emoji cards. In helping students realize that writing is a joyful act, it is important to make time for reflection. This is an excellent way to build student self-efficacy and identity, both as a writer and as someone who might pursue a STEM career. Questions could include the following. As a writer, what did you do well this week? What might you try differently next week? Which part of your writing makes you most proud this week? What did you learn about your goals? Could you imagine yourself achieving your goal one day? Don't forget to capture students' work, words, and wonderment and add them to the Wakelet. Finally, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions.